What's up, everybody? This is Saber, and welcome to RaceWorld. Now, I know it's been a while since I did the official announcement, and I haven't really gotten to the whole mini-series that I said I was going to get to, but this is going to be the introductory video, which I'm basically going to cover the most basic parts of creating the track itself, which are also the most time-consuming, because I posted, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, I posted up a video doing a refit of the excursion, where basically I kind of explained my project situation right now. Basically, I'm too busy to be working on anything but stations and a secret project or two that I'm currently working on. So I'm not really going to be able to help out with this project. I'm not really going to be able to do the mini-series on this project, at least for several weeks, maybe even a month-ish. I don't know for sure, but so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cover the most basic parts of this, and I'll try and hop on the server every once in a while. But yeah, that's pretty much where I stand at with this. So I just wanted to go ahead and inform you guys of that before I jump into this. And so basically in this video we're going to be covering clearing and paving, and that's basically going to be it, because the track is already kind of roughly blocked out. Oh, actually that's something I'll go over too real quick. So on each plate, other than this one, which I have called the home plate, or I guess you could call it the saber plate or something, because it's got the saber-tooth tiger on it. So on each one there are lava blocks and then ice crystals. So the lava blocks are where the track goes, roughly. You know, follow the general guideline. What I try and do is I try and follow the terrain a little bit. I don't like to cut through stuff very much. So and I'll go over this in a little more detail in a bit. But the red, and actually I need to adjust that a little bit. Yeah, the lava is all going to be the track. The ice crystal is actually a connecting track. So what the ice crystal is going to be is that's what will connect it to the track itself. So for example, just so you guys have something to reference, on this main track, most of this was all red. The only bit that had, or sorry, it was lava. The only bit that had ice crystal was this part of the road right here, because it loops back around and ties into the track itself, thus creating a lap on the plate. So it's the same as any other road. The only thing that I would do, or that I did do to kind of separate it, and I'll do it with doors later, but for now it's just kind of putting down a strip of the green and white hazard blocks, and then that kind of spaces it out and lets you know that that's where the connection actually is going to be. So I guess I'll go over the general rules of the track building, and then I'll actually kind of jump into the process a little bit. So the main thing that you need to consider is that with the new cars or skid racers that are going to be designed, they have to be a little bit bigger. So the tracks have to be a little bit wider. So I believe what I was sticking to was around 12 to 15, something like that on the width. It kind of depends, because if you're doing a corner, you want to make it a little bit wider, typically at least. You can make it kind of narrow at some points, but it should never be narrower than at least like 6 or 7 blocks, because you want to be able to at least fit 2 cars basically at any point. Oh, and also something that I haven't gone over yet is going to be jumps and stuff. So the basic rule that I'm going to have is, like, you don't really have to stay on any specific plate, but if you're just starting out, I would ask that you please do start on this plate, because this is where the road leads to. So it's something that I can more easily track where people are at. But then after I see who is doing well and who's doing what, then I'll be able to, you know, determine if it's okay for them to go work on a plate of their own or whatever. So for example, this one is going to be changed a little bit, I think. But for now, this is going to be a jump where you jump off of that plate and then jump right to about here-ish somewhere. So then you're going to like start building the track here. And then normally I wouldn't want to take out a huge chunk of the terrain, but if it's something like this where it's just like a wall, then you can, because then it's just you're gonna pass right through it. What I would recommend to do would be basically just widen this out, make it kind of flow back into the natural terrain over here and over here, and then but just make sure that this kind of gets all hollowed out. And I'm going to try and hop on the server the first few days at least pretty consistently to do exports, just in case anybody fudges up or anything, and then also just to provide guidance. But yeah, that's like I said, I try and follow the contours of the terrain, I don't like to cut through stuff. So if you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reference the original, or the first plate that I did, because this is a pretty solid representation of where it's good to follow the terrain and where it's okay to kind of work around it, or well, work through it rather, because you want to work around it sometimes and you want to work through it others. So for example, this is a spot where it was not completely flat, but I went ahead and made it flat for both the upper level there and then also down here as well. But then this whole like concave valley area was extended like all the way up here. So instead I filled most of it in and then just made it look a little more natural, and then I extended the road out so it was a little wider. So that's one example of working both with and through the terrain, if you will. Here I took out a bunch of stuff right in here, but I used the sand on the top edges of the terrain to make it look more natural, like it had been there the whole time. Because yeah, basically this whole chunk right here was kind of sparsely placed blocks that they just generated there. And then again, I did a little bit of cutting here, but not too much, because I wanted it to look more like a bridge. This was another spot where I did some kind of shaving around the outside of this edge, and then I kind of added some of that in. Again, you want to kind of try and mimic a more natural look of the actual terrain generation, so that way it seems a little more believable. It's not just like, oh, this person clearly made like a giant rectangular hole for this tunnel, because I don't like doing that too much. Now this is in progress, so it's not going to be quite that square, but even with that though, you do kind of get where I'm coming from as far as the flow. Now the nice part of this though is that I have most of the track laid out. Well, actually that's a lie, I have all of the track laid out, so you guys don't have to worry about that too much. Like I said, there are some areas like this strip right here is going to be a straight strip that then leads into this, so that I need to put a block there or something. But yeah, then like this big chunk can come out because that's just too wide, or that narrows the road too much. It wouldn't be wide enough. And yeah, there's oh, actually hang on, this area right up here, you can flow down through here. So for now I would basically just say to work on clearing plants and cacti, and some of the rocks and stuff. Like this, for example, is a thing that could go out. And then, so focus on that first, or try to, and then clear out the sand, and then place the rock in after that, and then you can kind of refine the shape of your road after that point. It's not the most exciting job ever, but it is just kind of, if you like have some music going and stuff, then it can be kind of meditative if you do it right. But yeah, it's not super exciting, but if you guys are interested in doing it, then it's going to be here. The planet is officially unfactioned, so it is ready for you guys to come and work on it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit and record it just so you guys can see basically what I'm talking about. First though, I'm going to go ahead and take out all of the lava blocks that are around this corner, because that corner is going away. Oh, and in case you're wondering how you're going to access all this stuff, on each plate, usually at about the highest point on the plate, there is a little build shack kind of thing that I built, where basically you come down here and go ahead and, apparently I wasn't in the gravity. So you come down here to the build shack and just hop right in, and you don't have to close the door behind you, but it would be nice. And then there are build blocks up in the corners. There are also undetonators here and up there. And there is a shop on the saber and or home plate where you can get rock if you need it, but you probably won't need it much. If you have been doing clearing of different stuff, then you should have rock anyway. So yeah, then you just hop into build block and you can go to town. So it's going to come down through here. So I think this kind of serves as a good section where there's a bunch of different things. So I'm going to work on in here, and then you guys will kind of see what I'm talking about as far as clearing stuff. Now, for more convoluted areas, this area is pretty flat, but for more convoluted stuff, I would recommend using the pick, remove, replace filter down here in the bottom right. And that way you can grab specific plants, and then it will only remove those. And in the same, or along the same lines as that, you can also use it for sand, which is super handy, because then when you're clearing out sand, you're not going to be taking away some of the rock that's underneath of it. you're only going to be doing the one and not the other. So like I said, it's really handy, especially if you like start to use really big build areas. I would recommend though to be very careful. Obviously there's an undo, but like try not to one, take out huge chunks of stuff because that's just going to cause lag, but then also it's easier to miss something if you do actually kind of accidentally screw something up. So like I said, I'm going to be doing exports the first few days, and then I'm going to try and do those a little more regularly because people will be working on it. So that way, if anything does get messed up, then it won't be a huge issue because there will be a save of it already. So I'm going to leave that lava there for now, but I'm going to go ahead and hang on, let me see here. This is one of the things where like it's something where you want to kind of balance how much you're going to go up and down, because even using wedges, it still gets a little bit rough if you're doing jumps all the time. So something like this, I think I might actually fill in with stone because it's on the same level, I think. At least it's pretty close. Let's see, it's what, 4 up? Yeah, 4 up. Yeah, okay, so this is a good example, I think, of a time where it's okay to compromise and to kind of fill in an area. Because otherwise it's going to be there's going to be a lot of jumping in there. Or in a different vein, see, this is kind of a tricky spot actually. So yeah, this is a good example, because you could either, if you have a lot of materials, you could either fill in this whole bit in here and then just have a drive and then you drop off down here, which I think will probably be preferable. Or you could clear out a ton of this stuff and make sure that you make it look natural, because I'm really picky about that kind of stuff. And so if you took out this whole chunk, like from here, and then kind of try and curve it over here, and then wrap back around, so like you're just cutting out from here over to about here-ish, then that would be one thing that you could do. So I think, gosh, I don't know. Okay, I guess if I was doing this without admin commands, what I would want to do is I would actually want to take this out, because then you're going to get yourself a lot of stone, you're going to get yourself a lot of materials in case you want to use those for yourself later. And by the way, feel free to use any resources that you get from this planet. Please don't go mine resources just to go get resources, but if you happen to get some while you're taking stuff out, just use them. Feel free, because I don't need them. So yeah. Another thing with this particular corner is you could definitely shave off this one corner right here, just so that it's a little more smooth, because that way you can kind of get a little more width in between here for actually taking out the rock to put in the track, because that's going to make it a little bit wider, which is muy bueno. Okay, so with that being said, I think what I'm going to actually do is I think I'll actually just take out this chunk. It's going to take me a little bit, but I'll probably go ahead and just speed it up, because it will give you guys a good example of a little bit of everything all in one go, because it's going to show you guys how I remove the plants, how I remove big chunks of stuff, and then how I smooth it back out to look like it's a little more natural terrain. So that's basically going to be the project for the next few minutes, and hopefully it's not too terribly boring. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments, because I can definitely answer them down there. I will also try to come in game every once in a while, but like I said, I'm going to be super busy, so I don't know how often I'll be able to come into the server. But yeah, I will definitely try to answer any questions that you guys might have, so feel free to ask down below. Okay, so I want to interrupt really quick, just so I can kind of walk you through what I'm currently doing right now. And what I like to do with the sand specifically is before I figure out, before I place in the stone and figure out what the road will finally look like, I do kind of a rough draft in the sand itself by doing cutouts of where I think the road should go. And that turns out to be a really good way to kind of block out where I want things, how I want corners to look, stuff like that. So that way I have kind of a visual before I actually like put all of the stone in, because it's a lot less work to add some sand to it or remove some sand from it than to remove stone, move the sand, and then, you know, do that whole process. So right now what I'm kind of doing is I'm trying to set up this corner as far as how I want it to look on the surface. Getting the curves right can take some trial and error, but once you get it right, you know, you kind of figure out a pattern that works with the curves. And you don't want to do straight lines too much, or at least I don't like to do straight lines too much, although it is a lot easier to do it that way. I try not to, so I think that is pretty close, actually. You just want to watch this outside curve right here. So let's go ahead and remove that one, and let me put that one back. Okay, so yeah, you want to start from, well, it depends on your curve. For this example, what you want to do is you want to do like a diagonal line, and then start easing that thing out into like sets of 2, and then, you know, even longer than that, like this is a section of 4 here. So that'll kind of give you a more gradual curve. So there, I think that will probably work for now, maybe a little bit more back here. Okay, so that's close enough just to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. So now you can see the outside corner here is pretty much what I want it to be. So then I'm going to go ahead and do the inside corner too, and then what I'll do is I'll actually blend those. Although I think actually what I'll do is I'm going to take out this chunk of rock and include this little underhang or whatever in the corner. It'll make it a bit easier for racers. Well, actually maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. I might, yeah, I think what I'll actually do is I'll extend this a little bit, maybe like out like here, just kind of match that line that I just pretended to make up. And yeah, that way there will still be a curve, but it won't be as tight of a squeeze as this. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and go down now. So that's another method that I like to use sometimes, is just do, like, while I'm flying, I'll just fly straight through the terrain and then delete as I go, doing a gradual curve with my mouse. And that usually produces pretty good results as well. Okay, so I have a rough line for the actual track. What I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to start, like, basically just between these two lines, just going to start cutting it out. And then I'll actually start smoothing it as far as blending it back into the terrain here in a little bit. Now keep in mind I'm not using any like really big chunks to remove stuff, because I want to make sure that I'm getting an accurate kind of deletion per chunk that I'm doing. Oh, and a little general tip that I didn't actually do is to actually start from whatever side. I guess it's kind of hard to explain. So I have it on this corner up here, so you can see that it moves off to the left. So it actually helps if you were to take out the left side first, because then it's easier to remove chunks going to the right, because it's not going to overlap like beyond your track boundary, if that makes sense. I'll try and do it from now on for the rest of this chunk, and you guys will kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, so you can see here now I got this all kind of channeled out. Oh, never mind, missed a chunk. So I have most of it out at least. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish out this chunk that's right here that I've got. But then basically after that I'm going to start blending so that it looks a little more natural, like I didn't just cut it out as a, a big pathway. So I'm going to fill in this as well, but I think I'll probably leave it at that because I don't want to make this video too long. I want it to be something that you guys can go back to and refer to quickly while you actually pave the rest of it. Well, not the rest of it, some more of it. I don't want to make you guys do all of it. But anyway, yeah, that should be a basic understanding of what I do for most of the work, which honestly, this is most of the work right here. Especially when you're going through areas that like have overhangs where they don't have, or if you cut stuff out where it's going to be stone anyway, you don't have to do a whole lot of work beyond that. So it's pretty nice. Something to keep in mind is to playtest a lot, playtest all the time. So build a car, they're about 7.5 mass with one thruster, something about like that. So it's going to be a little bit wider than the last cars and quite a bit longer, but try to keep it at about 3 tall, just for, your own sake, as to not hitting your head on things or the top of your car on things. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and finish this up and then show you guys what I have for the final product. Okay, now something for things like this when there's a cave underneath. A lot of times what you could do is, if you're limited on resources, you could just cover the top and then leave that as is. Preferably go off of the actual track so you can't really notice where it actually does it. In fact, I'll probably take this one all the way over here. But there is a problem though, where like if you happen to stop over where a cave was and you get out, sometimes you can get pushed through the ground or into the ground or whatever, and you will actually wind up getting punched right through, and then you can't get out because you're stuck in a cave, especially with lava in it. So I would recommend, at least if you're only going to cap off the top of it, at least make it 2 or 3 blocks thick. That way there's less of a chance for that to happen, and so it won't be as bad when it does, and yada yada yada, all that kind of stuff. So try to avoid doing stuff like that. I'm just going to go ahead and fill this one in because I have a lot of freaking rock, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for me. Oh, and another thing, just to keep in mind, when there is an overhang over the top of stone, that means there will be no sand there. So something like this, you don't need to fill in sand all the way over here because it would be stone. So if there's something over the top of it, it's not going to be sand. So keep that in mind as you do things, especially over overhangs like this kind of stuff here. If you find ores and stuff in the actual stone where there's going to be the road, I'd recommend taking those out and replacing it with just rock. That way it's not just something to distract the driver, or it makes it look a little cleaner. That's what I prefer to do. So basically this would continue on, like this would be go about like this or so, and then trying to follow like this curve. This is another thing where I would recommend taking this out as a chunk, because this surface down here is going to be level with this surface right here, I bet. So yeah, feel free to take out, all of that stuff out to about, basically follow this line, I think. Actually, you could probably even widen it a little bit, maybe like about like that, just to kind of make more of a general curve. But then you got to make sure that you're actually doing layers similar to this, how this is done with these, these different levels. It's not always consistent. So that would be how you would make it look natural if you're actually going to be cutting clear out to like here or something like that. Again, just something to play test. You just want to make sure that you can get multiple cars through any specific point at any time. So that's kind of the main priority as far as width goes. Okay, so something like this, basically you just kind of want to match what's already kind of currently there. Usually smoothing out about like this is a pretty basic and generic type of smoothing for a track, or at least for, well, sorry, for planetary generation. Usually want to keep things, depending on the area, at roughly slopes where it's going to kind of flow into the next segment. So we kind of got a like double curve here that sort of works out. There is still stuff over the top of it, so it's not going to get any sand. I'm going to go ahead and take that all off and then leave. You want to change it up though, where every once in a while you'll have you know, sections that are 2 or 3 tall. But then most of this is actually kind of okay. When you get segments like this, one thing that I always like to do, just kind of change it up, make it look a little more natural, is to kind of cut away at little chunks like I'm doing here. And then you're going to add in sand to those on the top edges. And then that'll kind of match the actual terrain style. And then you don't want to be too consistent because you want to change it up because the generation is pretty random. So you don't want it to look the same across the board. So definitely feel free to change how some of them look quite a bit. All right, so I think that will about do it. Actually, it's not perfect. It's kind of a quick job, but I think you guys kind of get the general idea. How to take whatever I had before. Maybe I'll try and show like a before image. Hang on, let me get over here. So I was like over here at some point. So yeah, something about like that basically is what I'm looking for. Like I said, I'm going to be kind of picky about it. Make sure that you're play testing it a lot. Because one, it's going to make you a better racer because you're going to know your track, you're going to know how it handles with the car and the track, and it's going to help you know how to better create track itself. Because you know, you'll figure out where things get bumped, where it gets a little too thin, where it's a little too wide, all that kind of good stuff. I'll be honest, this one's going to be kind of a mess, this whole chunk, because you're going to take out this wall and then flatten out a lot of that, take out that chunk, widen this up some maybe. Or you could just fill in more of this. I think that's probably going to be the more likely option, and make that kind of a straightaway in here where there's a curve. You could probably just take out this corner too, so you actually might not have to take out much of this. Like this line could probably just go all the way to there, so that would work. You just have to take out this big chunk of stuff in here. Yeah, and so then you just want to, like I said, you want to, what I like to do is I like to use the terrain as inspiration to help me build curves and more interesting features for the track where it feels more dynamic in my opinion. So that way you know, it's not just like oh, here's a straightaway with a 45-degree angle turn and then oh, there's a hairpin and stuff. It actually follows the terrain of the track itself. Now that being said, about this particular track in general, first off, go ahead and take that chunk out, I think, but then this one is going to get a little tricky because leave this last bit at least for me to block out at some point, because this is going to be like a bridge that's hanging off the side of this thing. It's going to be a huge jump. Like it's going to be I think it's going to be a jump onto, like from here onto, this will be gone, onto this bridge, and then this bridge is going to go from a jump from here all the way over to the next plate way over there. It's going to be a long jump, like right to there is where you're going to end up landing. So anyway, yeah, go ahead and please do work on this plate first, and then as I see how people are doing, then I can go ahead and kind of give them advice from there or let them work on other plates. So anyway, I think that is about it for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it was sort of informative and wasn't too much all at once. Like I said, I don't have time to work on a full series, so hopefully this crash course was enough to kind of give you guys an idea of what's going on. Anyway, thank you guys again for watching, and I will catch you guys later.